Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2018 State of the Sasquatch Address, the yearly monologue which I give to give a update to my personal condition, what to expect on this channel and every other outlet that I have, what may or may not cause difficulties in that regard, and generally just how I'm doing. This is usually probably the most serious video that I do. That may or may not be changing as well, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Want to talk a brief moment about last year, 2017, which was a very productive year in terms of a lot of things, but also a little bit disappointing in terms of others. First and foremost, I was able to move forward significantly and also be held back a bit as well in terms of what I've been trying to do ministerially. I know that it's not a really big focus here on this channel, or at least it has not been up until this point, but it is something which I believe I've done a good job of making people aware of, that it is something that I am focused on and moving towards. And in the last year, I was able to preach, I believe, a total of 8 times at different venues. Strangely enough, only one time at my own church, but last year, perfect example, I walked into a friend of mine's 61st birthday party, I believe it was, around this time in January of 2017. And I met a man there who, after the service, because my friend, he's a piano player, and he decided to have a church service to be his birthday party, which is not only one of the best ideas I've ever had, but is actually one of the most fun and entertaining and just enjoyable birthday party experiences I've ever had. After it was over, this man who I'd never met before in my life walked up to me and he says, "Hey, I have a special service coming up for myself in 2 days. I am a preacher and I've been preaching now for almost 60 years. And I want you to come and I want you to just be with us and celebrate with us as I go into 60 years." I'd never met this man before in my life. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I just kind of like, I'll see what I can do. And then he comes back a couple minutes later with a flyer and he says, "Hey, this is the last flyer for this. I would really, really like you to come." I said, "Okay, I'll see what I can do." And I have my own church. I'm making up excuses like, "I really don't want to go there. I don't know who you are," sort of thing. Trying to communicate that without actually saying it because I'm a bad person. That's not really anything that should be new information for people on this channel. Interesting realization to come to in the midst of this particular conversation, but we will move on. Anyway, so the next day comes around and I have this flyer in my hand going, "Man, I really don't want to go." And I got kind of like that nudge, I would say, in the spirit. And so I went there and I turned up there and there are 9 people in the building. There's the man, his wife, his 4 grandchildren, myself, my mother came with me because there was nothing else for her to do on that particular Sunday afternoon, and my friend, the piano player, who I just had his birthday party 2 days before. And we go in there, and I says, "Hey, where's everybody? Isn't service supposed to be starting about now?" And he said, "Well, we just got a phone call, and the preacher and all of the people that were supposed to be coming with him are not coming, so it's just us," which was certainly an odd thing to happen. And so I was a little bit, disconcerted. I'm like, I'm in a part of Michigan that I don't typically go to be here for this. I just drove an hour and 15 minutes to get here, and now there's nothing going on. And so I said, "So what's the plan?" He says, "Well, we're going to have service anyway because we're 2 or 3 gathered together in my name. There am I in the midst of them." And so I said, "Okay, we'll do that." I know my friend, the piano player, is certainly capable of carrying a service on for a long, long time in a good way, not just like monotony and repetition, but actually in a very effective and powerful and enjoyable manner. And so as I'm sitting there just waiting for things to get started, the pastor there, who was the one we were supposed to be honoring, turns to my piano player and friend and says, "Is there anybody that you know who can get here in a short period of time who can preach for us after the worship service?" And my friend points directly at me and says, "Hey, the kid can do it." And at that moment, I'm like, I am 26 years old, and I'm being called a kid. I don't really know how to rectify this in my head, but I mean, the aged and the elder, not necessarily the elderly, but I mean, people who are more experienced than I am and have a lot more miles under their belt, they are allowed to refer to me in whatever capacity they would like. This was by the way, in case it wasn't clear, this is one of my favorite stories from what happened. One of my favorite experiences that happened all last year. So I'm getting a little bit more detailed on this than I will a lot of other things. But with this, he was able to, he said, okay, can you do it? I looked at him like, well, I don't have my Bible. I'm out of my service area, so my phone isn't working, so I can't bring it up on my app. Is there a Bible here I can borrow? He says, yeah, sure. And so I looked around and I grabbed a couple of Bibles and I looked through, and one was a Catholic Bible, which if you know what a Catholic Bible, how Catholic Bibles are set up, they're very different from traditional Bibles, so I couldn't find anything in there. And the other one had the entire New Testament ripped out, and when he said, can you preach, the verse that popped into my head was in 1 Corinthians, and again, this may become more pertinent information later on, but with that not being in the Bible at all, that it was handed as I was preaching, or finding myself in a position where I was going to be preaching with no Bible whatsoever, which for me is not particularly a comfortable situation when you're asked to do something to commemorate 60 years of a person's life. It's a little bit disconcerting, just a little bit. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm praying very strongly, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. And I see this group of people come in from the back, and I recognize one of the people there coming in as being from my friend's birthday party the 2 days before, who was also a very, very prominent, very, very powerful, very, very good preacher. And I'm like, oh yes, that guy can preach. He didn't preach. The pastor there, who we were there to honor, he stands up and he says, after the worship service was over, okay, we're going to have Brother Gavin come up and he's going to preach for us. And I go, I have no Bible I can use, but here we go. And I really should learn at some point, and I believe I have, at least to a better extent now, maybe not perfectly, but to a better extent now, to just trust that when those situations arise, I don't have to worry about it. Because when I got up there, I didn't just preach, I didn't just speak, I didn't just teach or speak from the heart. I preached for 45 minutes without break, without flow. I mean, not without flow, but with flow, and just kind of moved straight through on, and was, as near as I could tell, very effective in that communication. So I was very impressed with myself for a second, and then I realized, wait a second, I have no idea what I just said. And so, coming to that realization, it kind of petered out and slowed down. 45 minutes had passed. I says, praise the Lord, let's all come up to the altar and pray. And turn around, and the pastor is like, no, preach more. I'm like, I have nothing else to tell you. And so I come down and we pray for a good long while. I was very surprised at how, in our mind, in our human understanding, we can go so far with something of our own selves, and then we expect X, Y, Z as a result. With what I presented, or with what I understood to have presented, I was expecting practically nothing, just like, hey, I was here, I did what I was able to, I'm getting out of here before they start, lighting the torches and pulling out the pitchforks to burn the witch, me. And so I come down and everyone starts praying, and there's a powerful move of God there in the altar, and I'm like, what? I had nothing to do with this. I says, not me, it's not me, it's not me. And as a result from this, I was able to really get a better grasp and a better understanding of just what it is that people look for or are looking for when they ask, or what perhaps a better way to say this is, but what I ought to be looking for in terms of ministerial avenues and opportunities. And this was something which I mentioned in Save the Sasquatch 2017, that in 2016, when I was in Greenland, I had been told to look for and try and get more experience. And more experience is precisely what I got over the course of that weekend. And I've gotten, like I said, I got several other opportunities to speak at other churches throughout the year. And all of them were similar in nature to that, where I would walk into a place that I'd never been to before, or only been to a time or two, and have people just hand me a microphone and say, please preach for us. And I'm like, I don't know how to react to this, because that's not, I try to be very, very respectful when I go into churches, when I go into places, when I go into assemblies, whatever it is. And so being given just random opportunities to speak to the general populace, the general congregation there, with the full blessing of the pastor is not something I'm used to having opportunity to do. It is a very good thing, and I appreciate all the opportunities that were given to me this year, and I pay honor to the men of God who did give those to me. But it's still not something that I was just ready for in that moment and in that time. So, yeah, ministerially, it has been a very strange year. I also had an opportunity, that this was a lot more prominently talked about earlier, or towards the end of last year, how I went to Shanghai. I thought it was going to be a lot more prominent of a missions trip. It wasn't, but it was still good. It was still very informative. It helped me connect me with somebody who was able to give me a different perspective on life than I had had up until that point. Or not necessarily on life, but on ministry and how it works and how I should be moving forward. And it's going to give me some new food for thought on how I ought to be comporting myself and preparing myself to move into a greater realm of that. Because as much as I love YouTube, as much as I love all the other things that I do, which I will be addressing all of these things in the next few moments, the real focus, the real thing that I really want to do is full-time ministry. And I am moving as quickly as I am allowed to, and in some cases trying to push a little bit past that because I'm impatient. And Lord help me with that, but I'm not praying for help me with that, but don't give me patience. Let that be a very firm thing. I'm not praying for patience, because anyone who prays for patience will be given many opportunities to be patient in. And I don't really want to have any more of those. I've had enough, thank you. So I'm not going to pray for that anymore. I'll just say, help the patience which I have be enough. That's a much better way of putting it, I think. I may be proven wrong in the next year. So, with that in mind, the overall thrust that I'm going for, I mean, as much as I appreciate all the stuff that I get to do here on YouTube, on Mixer now, that I've been able to do in my now 9-to-5 job, which I will also be addressing in my business in Primerica. All these things are awesome, they're great, they're amazing, but they're not the real focus. The real focus for me is to just move, not necessarily past, but in line with some of these things. Some of them will have to fall away. I don't think it's going to be YouTube, and I don't think it's going to be Mixer, because I can do those literally anywhere on the planet that there's an internet connection, which, as we're getting to now, is just about everywhere. So you don't have to worry about me just dropping off the face of the earth, although I am prone to do that from time to time. Or not necessarily dropping off the face of the earth, but just going to the other side of it, as the case might have been earlier just a couple months ago. Anyway, with that being said, the overall thrust that I'm kind of getting into is just moving forward, moving onward. And I have to understand, I have to realize, and I actually have a young man who I've had opportunity to talk with at great length on this subject. He did not know what he was getting himself into. He thought he was going to have like a 20-minute conversation with me about, why he should or shouldn't be dating a particular girl, because he asked me that question, and he ended up with a 3.5-hour lecture over the phone, and I don't think he was prepared for that, but God bless him, he sat through it, and he says it was good at the end. So, but in crafting that, because I did prepare for it, which is very odd for me. I never prepare for anything anymore, or in terms of speaking or teaching and things like that, or hardly at all, because 9 times out of 10, I'll get 2 lines into it anyway, and just be off on something completely different, which is actually more effective and more pertinent and more important for the audience in that situation to hear than what I would have prepared anyway. So why bother when it's going to change anyway, and it's going to be better than what I would have come up with in the first place? Personal opinion on that one, personal point of view. Other people have different ones. I understand them. I appreciate them. God love them. I love them. But that's just not how I work. Also, typically not how I work with YouTube and streaming. Everyone who is a part of this channel for any length of time is probably very well aware of that anyway, for a host of other reasons. Anyway, with that in mind, it came out of that preparation and then that delivery of that preparation to this particular young man, a much more clear understanding of a way that it's not that I didn't already view the world this way. It's just that for that brief moment, I was able to more perfectly explain it and to put it into words. And I still can now, and I may be doing that at some point in other capacities, which again we'll be addressing in just a few moments here, where I understood better the interconnected nature of all the different parts of my life. Even in the past year, SOTS 2017, I delineated every part of my life as though it was completely separate and unique and totally unconnected from the other parts of my life. And that is a very natural, very male way of thinking about things. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we're built. We focus on one thing at a time. And unfortunately, that doesn't work out so well. A lot of times it does, but sometimes it does not. This, in terms of overall life goals and life production, it really doesn't work. In terms, which is why I think a lot of women get this figured out a whole lot faster than guys. We're kind of stupid on this one. It's like minute task, like, hey, I'm going to do this today. And then we do that today. And then we have free time and we say, okay, well, I'm going to do this and this and this and follow one after the other logically in that manner. That goes better. But when we try and do one thing at a time over the course of life, it doesn't really work out so well. And so with that new realization and having a better focus and understanding of that, and then being able to really communicate that properly to these young men, and then by extension also communicate it to myself more properly, because I was there, I heard me, I was able to come to a better understanding of how everything is interconnected. So I'm not saying that what I was doing last year was wrong or what I thrust was wrong, because it clearly led to good things. But there is a better way of doing it, and that is constantly what this is about, particularly this time of year, particularly this particular address where I'm saying everything that I've done in the past year may or may not have been universally great unto itself, but as long as it in some way pushed forward the goal that I have of, or have now been able to more perfectly recognize and to express and to put into action, as long as that goal was advanced, it was good. Not necessarily saying that, this part here was more than the other, or that, I did a lot of exercise, did a lot of working out, which I did, but to say that that is, wholly separate from everything else that I did would be disingenuous, would be untrue, and would just basically be a harmful mindset in terms of trying to advance the whole. You cannot focus solely on one particular part of your life and expect everything else to be okay. Everything has to move in lockstep, in unison, in moving forward, in growing up. Because if not, if you have one area where you're just so far ahead of everything else that everything else is just getting left behind, that thing that you're focusing on will eventually start to suffer, because those other things will begin to pull you back. If you're, again, I have just stated, I have intent to be a full-time minister at some point in the future. If I become lackadaisical in my approach to maintaining my health or my relationships or anything else like that, there will come a point where that begins to negatively affect that ministry that I'm trying to push forward into. If I stop trying to focus, if I take focus off my finances and trying to build those up and maintain some sort of level of cushion between myself and abject poverty, if someone calls me up and says, hey, can you come preach for me? I'm out in Tennessee. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that because I don't have money to get there. Well, that's not a good thing. All these things are interconnected. They have to be in unison, in lockstep, and you have to mutually grow yourself, not just be able to grow one part over another, as my mindset up until this point would have been much more apt to proceeding in that vein. I said all that to get back to try and lay the groundwork of what I'm looking forward to in this year. And to also wrap up a couple more things that happened last year. Last year, just like 2 days before I got on the plane to go to Shanghai, I finished my bachelor's program in Bible college. Very excited about that. I have no idea why, I mean, not to say that I don't know why I went, because I went to learn, but I don't understand what the point of the degree was, or still is. It is what it is. I'm there for the teaching, not for the degree. I personally think that having come into a better understanding, or not necessarily a better understanding, but a better perspective on teaching and learning and collegiate things like that, there's a lot of benefit to them in the short term. But to really say, this is the end all be all, I will never say that. But to say I can see more benefit in the teaching, but I still don't see the benefit in degrees. And so while I now have extra degrees and I can put extra letters on the end of my name, which is nice because the abbreviation for associates, which I had 2 of at that point, is just really not a great thing to put on the end of your name. I'll let you all figure that out on your own, what that might be. So, laying that aside, I am now, a bachelor's of theology, and it's beautiful, whatever that ends up being. But it led me into a new place where I had a lot of people asking me, what are you going to do with it? What was the point of all this? Why did you put in all that effort? Why did you put in all that money? Why did you put in all those weekends? And you could have been working here, and you could have been doing this, you could have been doing that. Why were you there? Why were you there? Why were you there? And I came up with a very solid answer to that question. I don't know. And that's incredibly frustrating on the face of it. But in perspective with where I intend to go, I see that it was beneficial. I see that it was necessary. I see that it was helpful. Do I know specifically why? Can I lay it out to you in simple terms? Okay, I went here and I did this, and as a result of it, this will result, and 20 years down the road, this is where I'll be able to use all this stuff that I learned. No, cannot do that. I don't know anybody who could. But I can say definitively that there is now a level of basis for me to jump off of. There is a platform firmly established of knowledge, not of degree, but of knowledge that I can work with. Now, that is not to say that I have not been studying the Bible significantly on my own. Again, if you're going to be a minister, you probably need to read that at some point in your life, just so you know what's in there. I tend to read it a little bit more than others. That's been talked about before. I'm not going to, this is not about passing judgment. This is about I need that. I have recognized that as being a requirement for me to be able to move forward in that vein, in that line of thought, in that thrust of intention for how my life, how I want it to be, how I see it going, how I feel it needs to be accomplished. That being the case, having that now firm foundation of all that learning and all that education, all that knowledge, I'm still learning. I've found another teacher. I mean, not to say, that the ones who I've had before were not great, but I've learned from them, and now I need to learn more. Not necessarily saying that, I'm incapable of ministering. Clearly, it's not the case. A year ago, I did, and totally, and all through last year, and even the years before that, I would just walk up, hey, here's my Bible. Here, I don't have my Bible. Here's what the Lord put upon my heart to say today. It's great, it's beautiful, it's glorious, it's powerful, or whatever it ended up being in that situation. I become a living servant, not to be able to puff myself up, not to be able to tear myself down, but to be able to say, here is what I'm doing, here's what I'm going forward, here is what I have to share with you today, here's what God has given me, here's what God's dealing with me with, whatever the case might be, to be able to minister to people. I didn't want this all to be about church, but we're there. So we're there. I'm certain some of you will be very enthusiastic about that, others will be considerably less so. We can talk about that in the comments down below. But with that understanding that everything is intertwined, and I can't just be doing one thing over another, or trying to make one part of my life grow in exclusion to the others, or trying to exclude from one area of my life all the others. I have to understand that in moving forward in all areas of my life, I need to have a certain level of interconnectivity wherein all things can rise together. A rising tide raises all ships. Where if I'm going to have a rising tide in one area, all the different boats in my life need to be coming up at the same time. And so here's what we're doing. In the last year, a lot of you actually who are watching this now were not watching me in any way, shape, or form. You were not aware that I was a person on this planet a year ago. A lot of you came and are the active people watching this right now from Mixer. And I love you guys. You guys are amazing. You guys are fantastic. Sir Oswin, Nate, Sasquatch, Masters, all of these, Cousin Sass. I got to give special props to him. Give thanks again to Kuya for kind of getting me into that and helping grow the audience that I have or that I've had access to, and understand that there is a good thing that has come from it, and that there are more good things which will come from it in the future. And I do apologize to all the people who I've trolled and done bad things to with the green face mask and everything. I apologize, and I also don't, because it's fun. Let's be honest. But with that being said, I'm going to be making a few changes, not necessarily in my streaming, because my streaming is kind of what it is. And it lends itself very well to kind of bringing in the same type of content that I'm thinking about doing here on YouTube. And here's where we go with that. On YouTube, I have not posted practically anything on YouTube in the last year other than reposts of streams, and I think maybe one or two Sasquatch Speaks. I know at least one of them was SOTS 2017. Other things, I can't really remember. I looked at it just a couple minutes ago still can't remember what I posted or didn't post in 2017 because it didn't matter. Nothing was really important there. Reposted some streams. Okay, great. Nothing really came from, I mean, not necessarily that nothing really came from them, but there was no expectation of things to come from those. I think I posted part of Lost in Minecraft, now that I'm thinking about it again, with Kuya. Or maybe I did a full series with Kuya. I don't actually, or a full series and then a part of a series. I honestly do not recall. But there is things which are going to be coming out here on YouTube which are going to be different. And the number one big thing is that I'm going to go back to a weekly upload schedule. I'm going to have one video out at least every week, and that's going to be coming out on Sunday. And people who like it are going to be very happy. People who don't can ignore it. I don't particularly care. This is just what I feel to do. This is what I want to do. This is a way that I can advance all areas of my life at the same time. And what's going to happen is on Sundays, I'm going to do a Bible study or preach or whatever form it takes. Doesn't matter. Starting February, I think it's the 4th. Is it the 4th of February? I don't know. Yes, February the 4th, next week, I will be starting some sort of Bible-based thing here on YouTube. People who want to watch it, fantastic. You're welcome. People who don't want to watch it, you're also welcome to come by, leave a dislike rating. I don't really care. I'm not doing it for ratings. I'm not doing it for anything else like that. I'm doing it as an exercise to myself to be able to improve the ability that I have to convey thoughts and ideas in a biblical manner. I'm not expecting anything from it. I have things that I would like to see from it, but I'm not really expecting those things because it's an exercise unto myself to be able to improve myself so that when those opportunities arise, and pray that they arise a lot more frequently and a lot more often in a lot more varied situations than they did in this past year, as great as those opportunities were, I want more. I want to be moving forward. I want to see the things that I'm focusing on to grow, and this seems to me to be at least a small way wherein I can bring that to pass. Okay. Also, in the past year, like I said, I've started streaming. Streaming has been going very well. I have over 700 followers on Mixer. I have no idea how that happened. Thank you, all you people. We're going to ignore a lot of other things that are going on with Mixer right now because I don't want to remind people because I'm self-conscious about that sort of thing. Particularly because I think it has been going very well. It's certainly not gone as well as other people who have had more time and opportunity to be able to develop that. But I think as good as it could have gone, it has gone that well and better. So I'm happy with it. I'm not looking to be, the Lord High Master of ruling everything from his ivory castle behind his desk in his darkened room, but I am quite enjoying my time in Mixer. It's a welcome release. I'm not sure particularly how I'm going to fit in the time that I'm going to need to be able to do the aforementioned Bible-based YouTube release every Sunday with that Mixer schedule, but I will find a time, I'll find a way, and I will be doing my best to maintain both the Mixer schedule and the YouTube schedule. However, as I've said, I'm going to be prioritizing a little bit that YouTube schedule just because that is something which moves all areas of my life as near as I am able to perceive them, as near as I want to see growth go. I will be prioritizing that, although I don't particularly think it's going to be any great detraction from what I've already been putting out. I just have to learn to schedule that a little bit better into my regular week, and then life should be good. As I mentioned, everything else I've been trying to move forward. I'm doing pretty good physically right now. I know I've made a big deal about that in the past videos. I'm down a little bit in weight from last year. I haven't really been trying to be that far down in weight, but I'm doing okay. Let's just leave it there. I was on the wagon, off the wagon sort of thing with exercise. Right now I'm a little bit more back on, which is good because, everything needs to be growing, everything needs to be improving. I have gotten a lot more toned in the last year, I'll say that, and I'll just be happy and kind of move on from there. Also, as I mentioned in the last State of the Sasquatch address, I have quit driving people around. It was a good job, I suppose, as good as it could be. But as I mentioned last year, after doing it less than 6 months, I was not happy there. It was an interesting place. It was good people. I was able to meet a lot of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human beings. But ultimately, that is just not the right thing for me, particularly because it was starting to overcome and interfere in a lot of other areas of my life, which I wanted to be effective in. Last year, I would have had to like beg, borrow, plead, and practically pay to have time off to go and be a counselor again at camp, which I had a fantastic time doing. I got to reconnect with a lot of people who I'd made connections with in the year before and be able to minister to them and do, again, moving forward the overall arching thrust of life, the overarching plan that I have for my life. I was able to advance that, but I would have had a much more difficult time doing it had I still been driving that van. In April, I quit that and I started working at a law firm as a shipping manager, and that's been going spectacularly well. Yet it fits my life better, it fits my lifestyle better, the pay is better, the benefits are actually there to be benefits, and everything is generally just a better experience, better working environment, better opportunities even on the job to be able to minister with people. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to think of that, hey, you go from a place where you're exposed to people who are hurting and looking for help in any way, shape, or form, and you have a better chance of ministering to people who are not that. Go from people hungry to people you think are just like totally on their own, but for whatever reason, in terms of that ministry experience, the opportunity to be able to do that, I've been having a lot more success at the law firm than I ever did driving the van. I don't understand how that works, but to God be the glory. Also, I am still working in my financial business. That is also going very interestingly. There are some things on the horizon which could be very good. There are some things on the horizon which could be very bad. I know last year I said I was very discouraged with that. I was not sure if I was going to continue with it. I still am. I am not sure still what is going to come about of it. I want it to work. I want that to be the financier of all the other stuff that I want to do in my life, because it fits in with the plan. It fits in with, hey, I need to be able to go at the drop of a hat to, if I need to be able to go at the drop of a hat to Australia or New Zealand or halfway around the world again, and I need to go like right now, I need something that has the income potential that business does, and it has the flexibility of hours and schedule to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be gone for 6 months. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do while I'm gone. So basically just keep working and make me money, and I'll be back, in 6 months. The law firm is great. It's not that. It's a placeholder. It's temporary. There's nothing that's going to come from that place which is going to be long term. When I signed up, I said I'm expecting 2 years. If I go a little bit past that, I will probably be surprised. I'm expecting to be there pretty much exactly 2 years, and move on to something else, or hopefully by then have the business up and running enough that I don't have to worry about finding something else, just simply being the thing. Again, it needs to be the financier. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. It just, for whatever reason, has not become so. And that's personally frustrating, because in the last year I have not put forth as much effort as I did the year prior, but I still put in enough effort where I should have seen something more than what I saw. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's my face. There's probably a very good reason why I haven't shown it to you people yet. It's frightening, I'm quite sure. I look in the mirror and I'm scared. It's particularly because I see one of my ancestors in my face, and he's not a pretty fellow when he got up about 45. So we're going to leave that where it is. And that really is kind of the overall thrust of it. Things are going well. Things are not going great. If there was 1,000 frustrations all throughout the year, my car was both the biggest blessing. I got a car last year, which was both the biggest blessing and the biggest detriment to my entire year. I had that thing in the shop so many times, and it cost me so much money, doubled, almost tripled the price, trying to keep that thing running. And the stupidest, crazy stuff to break on it. Like, who knew that antifreeze could freeze? Who knew? It goes beyond the realm of human understanding, the things that went wrong with that car, that I had to have it towed into the the mechanic shop time and time and time again to make sure that everything was all up ship shape and ready to go. I don't understand it. I was really upset about it. I paid a lot of money to get that car up and running again and again and again and again and again. Hopefully it's finally fixed and I can be done with it. But my word, was that just the biggest drag on the whole year. Helpful every time it was running. But it seemed like every 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, it was right back in the shop again and again. And I don't understand it. I was not a fan of it. I was very upset by it. Still am to a certain point. You can tell I'm a little salty about that. But overall, it was a good year. And much was accomplished in it. And much good was done by it. And much experience was gained through living it. I'm just hoping it was enough. I'm just hoping that I'm prepared. I feel personally, I mean, there's no quantifiable evidence to really prove this, to really say for certain, yes, this is the case. But it feels to me as though I'm coming to the end of a certain period of my life. And I talked about this a little bit on my stream on Thursday before I was interrupted by Kuya and we started talking about Monster Hunter, which was fun, but I kind of really wanted to get this down. I'm going to get a little bit out of it here, and I'm not going to go on too much longer because I'm already past the time that I try and do. I try and get these done in 30 minutes or less, and we're not getting there. But I feel like I'm coming to a point in my life where a lot of the frustrations and the things which have just been pulling me down and holding me back are about to be released. And I don't know how, and I don't know why, and I don't know when. But I feel like I'm coming very, very close to that time where all the things which have been restraining me are about to be released. And the perception, at least, that I have of things being wrong, of things being not right, of things just not working out how I think they ought to, is about to be, for lack of a better word, broken. And it's going to be opened up, and I'm going to see a new way path or a new way forward for this year and for my life as a whole. And we'll see what happens in a year. But I just feel, more so than I have at any other time in my life, I feel like I'm on the cusp of something great, something big, something momentous, something which will quite possibly define the entire rest of my life. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know how it will come about, but I just feel like I'm almost there, and it's exciting. It's really exciting, and I hope I'm not wrong. I really, really hope I'm not wrong, because there's just, after having so many years of things just not quite working out the way I thought they were, after having so many years of things just not quite measuring up to the expectation that I had, it's coming to the point where it's just like, I need one of these. I need one. I just watched the movie The Founder, which, fantastic movie. People should see it. And there comes a point that just at the beginning of that, not the beginning, no, it's towards the middle where Ray Kroc is trying to get a loan in his house. And he's in the bank and he's like, hey, you don't understand. I need this. I really need this. He comes to a point where he says, I need this money. I have a need beyond my ability to express it in the English language, to be able to say, I have not just a desire, not just a want, not just, a fervent hope, but that I have a need for something good to happen right now. And I'm right there. I need something good to happen. I need something not just good, because there's good stuff that happens all the time. There's good stuff that happens every single week. And there's good stuff that happens every time I'm together with you people on stream, when you come up in the YouTube comments, whatever the case may be. You all are awesome people, and you really do help improve my overall quality of life just by being there. But I need something more than good. I'm looking, I'm striving, and I'm pressing, and I'm trying to either create or grasp hold of or attach myself to something great. And that's what I want to see happen in this year. Not just for me, but anyone else who's looking for it. Get in your mindset that good is awesome. Good, wonderful. But there's no greater enemy to great than that which is good. Because if something is good, we have the tendency to say that, well, it's good enough. I don't need more than this. But if we can get it in our minds that as good as life can be, or as good as life is, if we can say that that is not enough, is there something more beyond this, that there is something great, that is something worth pushing for. That's a mindset that I want to have in me. That's a mindset that I want to live my life by, wherein I'm able to say at all times, in every way, I'm pushing forward, I'm moving onward, I'm trying, I'm with everything that I have within me, my strength, my mind, my intellect, I want to be pushing forward into something bigger and better and greater and more helpful, more useful, more impactful than what I have already. There's something more out there and I can feel it. But I'm not there yet. But before the end of this year, I might be. And before the end of this year, you might be. I'm not saying I'm going to have anything to do with it. Probably not. I'm a random guy on the internet who you happen to maybe still be listening to at this point. But if you are, think of it this way. I can see something this year. I can push for something this year. I can grasp hold of something this year that I have never had the opportunity to see or do or hold in my hand before. There's something out there this year which has the potential, the possibility, the opportunity for my life to go from just good enough to being truly great. And that to me, is one of the most positive, encouraging, uplifting ideas I've come to in a long time. That even though right now, and I've said this before in 1,000 different ways, in 1,000 different messages to 1,000 different people, even though right now there is good is not good enough. There is greatness, and I want to grasp hold of it. I want to hold it in my hand. I want to claim it as my own, because greatness, whatever form that takes, will finally be an answer to what I've been looking for. I don't even know how to define it. I don't even know how to see it, how to say it, how to put it into words. As great as my lexicon of English language is, there is still something out there which I have not yet been able to fully grasp onto and to understand. And that is what I'm pressing for. That's what I'm pushing for. And that's what I would encourage you all to look for. You may have a totally different mindset. You may have a totally different thrust in life. And you probably do, because most people don't do crazy stuff like I do. Don't. It's bad for your health. But just think, whatever it is that you're pressing for, whatever it is that you think of, that you can see, that you can hold in your mind and say, there's a greatness there. There's something beyond what I've got right now. Press for it. Push for it. Make it your own. And make 2018 maybe not the best year ever, but make it the best year so far. So that 2019 can then be the best year so far. And 2020 can be the best year so far. And 2021 can be the best year so far. Because if we can always press forward and say that good enough is not good enough, but that greatness is the goal, then every year will be awesome. I don't know how I got here. I had 5 things written down on a piece of paper when I started here. Like I said, at the start of this. Whatever I write down, it doesn't matter. I always end up someplace totally different. But I hope that those of you who stuck this out, who've been here for the whole 40 whatever odd minute it is, that you got something, that you have an understanding, not just of my mindset, of my push, of my thrust for this year, but for yourselves to say, although I've already done good, and although this year has the potential to be good, and although last year was great, there's something more that I can see possibly coming down the line this year, and I want to get to be a part of it, and I want to be a hold of it, and I want to be on the cutting edge of it to really understand and to grasp hold and to wrap my life around whatever that is. So, with that, I thank you for being here, for listening, for watching, for being a part, for helping me, for just listening. Because as great as life has been up until this point, and as great as you all has helped make life up until this point, I believe there's still more. And in so much as my small part of the world exists, you all help make that just a little bit better. You all help make that just a little bit more. Because I can be a random guy just talking to myself in my room. But with you there, I'm not just talking to myself. There's just a little bit more. Just a little bit extra out there. And so, to you, I say thank you. And I believe that to be the main thrust of this entire thing. Thank you for being there, for listening, for liking, subscribing, whatever the case might be. Thank you for supporting me in this mad cockamamie brain scheme that I have trying to do all this weird stuff. I don't even know what it is. Half the time I'm totally clueless. But for the things that do work out, thank you for being there. God bless you all. Let's all have a great 2018. And I suppose I'll see you all next year, or on stream, or next Sunday, or whatever the case might be, whenever I see you next. Until then, live greatly.